Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders once said, "We're all whores. We all sell a part of ourselves." Hello everyone, this is Fahrenheit 452. I'm Dodo, and along with me here is Sai. Today we're going to talk about prostitution. Everybody is familiar with what it is, but here we're going to talk about what people in this line of work go through. So Sai, what are your opinions on this?
I would like to quote Julie Pendle, who says, "Prostitution is not a job. The inside of a woman's body is not a workplace." So we need to first understand and how does it feel to be a prostitute? How does it feel to be a line of work? Before we go into that, like I said, I use the phrase line of work. A lot of us do not really believe it to be a line of work in the first place. So
Mhm.
Dodo, let's just talk about prostitution being a line of work. So what do you think? Should it be accepted as a line of work? Before we talk about criminalizing or it or decriminalizing it, what do you think about prostitution being a line of work in the first place? Along with the fact that how people feel being in that line of work.
See, it's a person's choice what they want to do with the bodies. I just see it another business. A person just sells their body for a night and they earn some capital from it. And I just see it as another line of work as everything else.
Okay, the way I see it is like you very well said. I would also agree on the
Mm.
point that
Mm.
on the point that it should be accepted as a line of work that everybody has a choice in the first place.
Yeah.
As we open this podcast, the quote from Peaky Blinders that
Mm.
each one of us sells something or the other.
Yeah.
We just sell our skills, we just sell the time that we invest.
Yeah.
So that is a huge concept which I always believe in. We are like each
Mm.
one of us is a whore in the first place because
Yeah.
a lot of us aspire money because money is
Mm.
what meets our needs. And again,
Yeah, it fills our belly.
yeah, that's
It
there.
fills our belly, yeah.
The point of saying that everybody is a whore is that there is something we are all chasing. There is a dream or a goal or an
Okay.
objective. It's the same thing.
Okay.
So we trade things for that one want or one need that we have. It's the same thing with prostitution. The only thing is here it's money
Yeah.
and there it's different things. So when you really don't consider prostitution as a line of work,
Mm.
but people who are already there in it, it's shaming people. It's shaming
Oh yeah.
people who are in that line of work when you really don't consider
Absolutely, yeah.
it as a line of
Mm.
work in the first place.
Yes,
Because
I agree.
prostitution could be, it's not always forced. Because it is, I don't say that women enjoy it or men enjoy it in the first place,
Mm.
but they are there because of their needs. Needs in the sense, not bodily needs. They need to make ends meet
Mm.
under different circumstances.
Yeah.
Circumstances is what forces them to be there.
Well, everybody's got bills to pay, and if that's the only way you can pay your bills, then you could do it. But yes, the forced prostitution is one facet of it. And when I say forced, I'm not saying forced by circumstances, I'm saying literally forced. Like you're kidnapped, sold off to someone, and you have to buy your way out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing one documentary by Vice on YouTube, and that crew goes to Bangladesh and they talk to prostitutes in that area,
Mm-hmm.
and they find this one common thing is that they were all sold as children or as at some point of their life
Yeah.
and for a certain fee, and they have to do a certain number of sessions to buy their way out,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe they get their freedom. Now that's the part I don't like. Right at the beginning, you know what happens, because over here they did not have any choice on what they were going to do. Second, this was a bizarre circumstance, I'll say, where you just
You don't
your
have a
life's been
choice.
snatched under your nose.
Like very well you said, it's like people have making this line of work a choice that they choose to make.
Hmm.
This is not
Hmm.
being happening in the case you said.
Yeah, that's the part which is very disturbing, because the choice of doing what you want in life is being taken from you, and you're subjugated to get accustomed to the circumstance you've been forced into, and that's what I don't like. But on the other side of it, where people choose to take up the profession, but it's it's not because they are nymphomaniac. Fools with their stereotypes, they often categorize them as nymphomaniac. You've met the people in our college,
Of course,
how close-minded they are. Remember, right?
they are, man.
And that was the kind of nonsense they said whenever we spoke about them. And even if we mentioned about take them for nymphomaniacs or whatnot. But they're just paying bills. They're just trying to get by, fill the food in their belly, maybe pay the electricity bill they didn't pay for the past couple of months, and who knows. They're just trying to get by. And I think that opportunity should be there to do so, right? You just want to get by.
Indeed, it's like there is this quote that I again, too many quotes here. I did read this quote online from a sex trade survivor.
Hmm.
It's better than working at McDonald's when you really
Hmm.
legalize it. And then there's this point where you were explaining about the case of trafficking, where at least when you work at McDonald's, you're not the meat. So it really hit me hard. It's like the
Hmm.
choice that people don't have. And then again, there's this song that I guess you have heard from
Hmm.
Tupac. It's called Brenda's Got a Baby. So it explains the whole circumstance of a black lady or a lot of black women out there
Dude, that
who,
that's an entirely different thing. It's a 12-year-old being raped, and she has pregnant, she delivers, and then she dies. That's what Brenda's Got a Baby is about. I
okay.
I don't know where the prostitution angle is there in it, but maybe there is. But either way, it's fucked up because it's a 12-year-old involved. First of all, I don't know
No,
what to say
of
about the
course. I
story.
would I would like
Hmm.
to. There's this line from there. It's like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happens is, yeah, of course that is happening. She has a
Hmm.
baby. Okay, let me just
Yeah.
explain the whole song like you did, the
Hmm.
half of the song.
Hmm.
Like she's being raped and she has a baby. Because
Yeah.
right from the beginning, she has a baby, okay, and then
Yeah.
she doesn't have money, she doesn't have babysitter. And
Yeah.
there's this line which says, so she sees sex as a way of leaving hell.
Yeah.
It's paying the rent, so she really can't complain. Prostitute
Hmm.
found slain and Brenda's her name. She's got a baby.
Hmm.
So the ending lines really shows that that is the only resort she has. That's the last resort.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
was throwing more light on. That is the prostitution angle that we have here.
Hmm.
That is one of the whole point is that that is one of the big truths
Hmm.
of a lot of people out there. And of
Okay.
course, Tupac had a lot of problem when this song was too dark and too sad for them to release, but he did get it out.
Yeah, he did get
That
it out.
explains the circumstance of a lot of people. In that
and
case,
and it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed at all.
exactly.
And Sai, there's one interesting observation I'll say
Okay.
I've come across that I never thought at the time that way when I read it. It gave me a question about consent.
Hmm.
That should consent be fun? I remember watching this channel called Philosophy Tube, and Oliver Thorne hosts that show. And before doing this video,
Hmm.
he put out on YouTube. He put out a request on Twitter where all sex workers can talk about what troubles they have. And one of them said that it's just work. Sometimes you love it, other times you hate it. But in the end, you got to do it. If you put it that way, it's yes. We could even put it in something mundane as going to your classroom
Hmm.
during college, right? You hate it sometimes, sometimes you love it, but you gotta go. But talking about sex here, about here, because it brought a question in my mind about consent. Because often when people say consent, it's of willing. But it could be
Yeah.
willing because let's do it, or willing because yeah, I'm excited, let's do this.
Yeah, man. Take any line of work. Only prostitution. You cannot say that people are totally satisfied doing their jobs. A lot of people just make by with the jobs that they have or with the jobs that they are complacent with.
Yeah.
It's like the focus is on their needs and wants.
Hmm.
So if you put it that way, it is acceptable. Hugely,
Hmm.
what is believed by a lot of feminist abortionists, what do they understand is that sex trade is degrading.
Yeah.
It is the oldest oppression, that's what they call it, and they don't like you very well said to be a line of work or
Yeah. Yeah.
something like any other word. So what would you say to that?
Fine, they can have an opinion like that. That's okay. There is
Hmm.
some truth to what they said. The problem with this mindset is they're degrading the very women they claim to fight for.
Exactly.
Right. I mean that's what happens when you're too engrossed in your ideology. You forget why are you there in the first place.
What are you fighting for in the first?
In their case, they're about equal rights, equal pay, and women being treated with respect amongst the others. And here they are when they find not just prostitutes, a woman who wants to be a housewife. In the eyes of a radical feminist, is someone you should stay away from. It's not about choice to them anymore. It's about we should do what the men are doing. If the men are
Hmm.
going to the corporates and getting harassed by their boss day and night, do the job, and they have to do the job. That, according to them, even women should pursue. Good aspects of what men get from the patriarchal society, and the bad aspects also. But what it actually stood for was choice, in the sense, like, if a man wanted to be a scientist, he could be a scientist. Similarly, if a woman wanted to be a scientist, she could be a scientist. And same should be for everyone, for every other occasion also. So they have this very elitist mindset, especially the radical ones, that what they think is right, others are wrong. There are no other perspectives behind this. There's no other sides to this coin or story. They don't want to understand, and that's it. I don't like such mindset. It's very elitist, if you ask me, and it's problematic because now you have ignored this huge demographic of
Mhm.
women who are suffering day and night in some way or the other. Even if they took up the profession by choice, they're suffering on different levels. Let's just say what many stereotype this job as. It's often said that they have to have very bad experiences from their clients, but in reality, it's more from cops. And the reasons are pretty odd because they assume that criminals apparently hang out on cat houses, bordellos, where prostitutes operate. Over there, they hang out, so they just come and raid the places. And a lot of the times, the sex workers, they lose their belongings. In that same video I spoke about in the philosophy tube one, there was one tweet Oliver Thorne received where they were saying about that most of the violence in their experience in that line of work was mostly from the cops. And in the process, either they were bruised, they were beaten black and blue, or shit would happen like they would lose their belongings, laptops taken away, iPad's gone, the phone's taken because there's possibly some drug peddler in their contacts and such, which is kind of which is sad, if you ask me.
Yes, man, indeed, I would agree
Hmm.
with you on, and I would also like to add, it's like when you have such elitist mentality towards a profession that, of course, people
Hmm.
choose due to as a not like they
Hmm.
like it or not, they choose. They're already in
Hmm.
there. A large part, a large amount of women are already
Hmm.
there in it, and you are degrading them in the
Yeah.
first place with such ideologies. And again, what happens is again we're all doing the same thing. It's like you don't treat them as commodity. They don't get the respect and dignity that a human
Yeah.
should get. That is one big thing that
Hmm.
always affects me whenever we are talking about
Hmm.
prostitution. I don't know why. I really get affected and really feel sad that prostitutes are never treated with dignity. They're thrown away or dealt with like commodity.
Yeah, and the basis of the disrespect they face is just because of the profession they are in.
Exactly. That should never be the case. You should judge a man. It's like you should never judge a man by his profession.
Yeah, or whatever.
Like I truly believe in that.
I mean, see, if someone's a douchebag, you treat him like. Being a prostitute doesn't qualify you to being a douchebag. I hope I'm making sense on this, but I know I sound a bit brash,
Yes, man,
yeah.
you are.
So, okay,
Of course.
so that's what disheartens me on this. But again, there are other facets to it also.
Okay.
Now, another observation I found out, again, it's from another book, but I'll tell you what it is sometime later. On this, I read is that most of the time in prostitution, it's out of a result of immigration. Now, let me explain how. If you're supposed in this country where there's violence through and through, there's gang violence,
Mm-hmm.
other sorts of crimes, let's say in Honduras, okay, and you want to get out of Honduras right now. So you go to this man, we call the pimp. He says, fine, I'll get you out of this country and I'll take you to Spain where you want to go and it's better out there. But since I'm taking you out there and you're not going to pay anything at all, you are
Mm-hmm.
to sell your body for a couple of years. There's a certain amount to pay. A very similar thing to the human trafficking, but not human trafficking. It's more like paying a debt in this case.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there too is one sort of debt, but it's like leasing the property or whatever. But here no one's bought. Here it's more of a deal done. You get me out of the country, and I'll sell myself. And
Of course. It's more like this white concept of sugar babies. It's like
yeah.
people just it's like girls or boys, especially girls.
Hmm. Hmm.
They just hang out with rich guys. They satisfy their sexual needs in exchange of not only money or the other type of favors. It's like they just help them out get a job or something like that.
Yeah.
It's the similar thing.
No, 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 no.
That's
The
what I'm trying
to
to say.
No, 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 no. They're not. They're not similar. I mean, dude, I think you just compared casting couch and casting couch with that. They are totally different things.
No. That's not what I'm
Oh.
implying. What I'm trying to say is it's a similar concept that explains what you said. It's
Okay.
not same.
Okay, you're trying to
It is a concept
analogize
that
it, but I don't agree
exactly
with the
exactly.
analogy.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Let me explain this.
Mm-hmm.
I need to buy something.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say
Okay.
a laptop because I have to write another book. So I come to you and you're the guy with money. So Sai, I need some money.
Okay.
He said, fine, I'll give you whatever amount you need for the laptop. And I say 60,000. You said, fine. I'll not take a single penny from you. But since since you're not paying for the laptop I bought for you, you will clean up my house for the next 2 years. It's something like that.
Okay.
Except instead of cleaning house, you're
Okay.
doing sex work. Now, the thing is, here there's clearly choice. And we cannot say that there was no choice because there was a choice here. She just wanted to get out of a violent country to a country that's not as violent as Honduras.
Mm-hmm.
So there is choice involved. But when she comes to Spain, leaving Honduras, she comes under the impression that it's all fine. But over there, that's where the real problem starts. I mean, police brutality, this and that. The police brutality is there. Her things might be seized just like that in a flick. At the same time, there is also a risk of deportation.
Okay. That there are a lot of
Hmm.
constraints imposed on
Hmm.
her. Then again, that restricts her, that puts her in a
Yeah.
very awkward
Yeah.
position.
No, because over there now she has to continue doing what she has to do because if she doesn't generate income, she risks deportation, not by just authorities, by the gang she made a deal with. If suppose she just went there and said, "I'm not going to do this, screw your deal, I'm out." They have the manpower to find you, and they'll take you back where you came from, that same violent hellhole that you were running away from. And I don't know if
Yeah,
you know this, but Honduras is a very dangerous place. Everywhere there is, yeah,
it is many.
there's rampant gang violence, trafficking, there's drug trafficking, you name it. Even the local authorities are involved. So it's like UP government in a national level. That's how Honduras looks like. And now she left that to go to Spain. Now the thing is, she has to do that for 2 years, as given in the example. Otherwise, she's going to go back. No, but then she can't go back. So what's she supposed to do? So she'll continue doing the job, and she's not only risking deportation by the people she made a deal with, the gangs, but she's also risking deportation from the authorities because after all, she did land up in Spain illegally from Honduras in this example, right?
Hmm.
We can assume a similar things happening in our subcontinent also, in our country also. Some from Bangladesh are coming, some from maybe Sri Lanka or Myanmar is coming to a country like that. And they not only risk violence, but the thing is, none of these two people are great. So in their mindset, what's going on is fine. For 2 years, I'll have to sleep with people I maybe like or don't like, sleep with strangers and earn something. At the same time, I'll have to tolerate the beatings and the shenanigans of your cops and your gang guys who she made a deal with. But after the 2 years, it's just freedom. They will find a way to give me citizenship. At the same time, I can live a free life compared to the ones I had before because the country where I escaped from, there's barely any sense of justice or anything. Everything is terrible. So when again people say that again that choice is not involved, of course there is choice involved. This is definitely choices involved. So she's choosing between life and some sort of a bad contract of sexual slavery for some time. Okay,
Okay.
fine, maybe not sexual slavery, but a contract that's, a violent contract, a harmful contract for 2 years straight or maybe 3 years straight. So yes, there is choice involved, but it's like picking between the lesser of the evil. I'm not saying that, by choice it means heaven and hell. I'm saying the lesser evil of the two, being killed in the gang or tolerating a bit of torture and then freedom. She's obviously going to pick the one that guarantees life in this case.
No man, it depends. It again, it's like that is your opinion, I would say, because it's again, it's
Yeah.
on the woman's opinion to choose life or to choose the work she has to do, the
Hmm.
sex work that she has to do. Delving a little deeper into it, do you think decriminalizing sex work, how would that impact have on trafficking, and how would that play out in the scenario that we have today? Like you would have been you have been talking about the point in Honduras and other places. So how would that be? Do you think
Yeah.
decriminalizing sex work is a good thing in the first place?
Yeah. Legalization is one side of it. Decriminalization, of course,
Okay.
it's good. There is virtually no harm on them, right? Cops won't barge in to your places demanding for drugs and whatnot. They're not going to barge in, or neither there will be any sort of inspection going on. When we talk about legalization, there is a bit. There are two different things. They appear similar: legalization and decriminalization. Legalization means that you need licensing, there's a bit of paperwork, you need to have, there is a particular set of standards when you legalize something. So I can assume that there has to be a salary if she's working in the bordello. If she's working independent, maybe not. But if she's working in a group, then there has to be pension, there has to be proper guarding that there's no harm to her. There'll be monitoring. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I do agree that there needs to be, it's like there will be a separate, do you say, standards for that. And
Hmm.
when something is really
Hmm.
illegal, you can do whatever you want.
Hmm.
Being when things are illegal, like
Yeah.
for example, drugs are illegal, you can quote your own price. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you quoting a price
Hmm.
against your
Hmm.
competitor, and nobody's there. There's no standards in the thing.
Yeah.
Nobody's controlling you in the first place. So
Hmm.
maybe if we
Hmm.
decriminalize it, one way to see it, of course, one way to see it is that, like we
Hmm.
talked about how we opened this discussion, prostitute maybe would be prostitutes might be treated well, treated with dignity as it, and considered that as a line of work in the
I mean,
first place.
Sai,
That is one solution.
Sai, when we talk about dignity, I don't think the way I see the society is right now, I don't think they will ever be treated with dignity. But at least they will not be subjected to brutality. They'll not be considered expendable. I hope you know where I'm coming from. I
No, man, no, yeah, exactly. It does make sense, but like the
yeah
word that you use, brutality, maybe
yeah.
they would be a little away from the brutality. When we talk about
Hmm.
decriminalizing or making sex work legal, what about the brutality they might face in terms of the violence that they face? There are many harms to sex work in the first place, like being sexual violence. That's one of the things that a lot of women in prostitution endure. How would that if we decriminalize it?
Which is why just decriminalization will not only work. We have to both legalize and decriminalize. You're getting it? It has to be both. So there has to be licensing regulation in the sense like in terms of pricing, benefits, and here and so on. But at the same time, it should not be subjected
Yeah, of
to
course, man. But at the
brutality.
same time, there are always harms in this line of work. Like every line of
Hmm.
work has its own problems. That's always there. But it does take a toll on the body when it is legalized and a lot of people go on to work in this field. That's one thing there. Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
I would agree on the fact that if we decriminalize it,
Yeah.
we need to take steps to make sure that New Zealand is a good example, because in New Zealand, it's like, I guess prostitution is legal, but what they need to do is, again, they need to investigate the harms and the sexual violence that goes into it, and also that there should be regulation so that for a minimum period of time, not cannot do it for
Hmm.
a longer time, so that it doesn't really affect the person. We can minimize the effect it might have on the body of the person.
Yeah, I mean, say there are also other effects of legalization, not just sexual violence. I mean, see, in Britain, what they did,
Okay.
they legalized prostitution. Okay, but suppose you're a prostitute and you've rented a flat where
Yeah.
you do your business. But the thing is, your landlord will be charged for
Okay.
brothel owning, and that is illegal. And for that, she might have to suffer its consequence. So she has to get out. There's no roof over her head. Secondly, there was another amendment. I think it was for a short while what they did. And now we are talking about other Britain because it's better off there, and still there are problems. Forget our country. Where we are, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. But we can at least find out what's going on other places, and still where are the mishaps going on, right? So over there was this another amendment they were trying to come up where the prostitutes cannot come out on the streets and
Mm-hmm.
sell their product, right? And what happened is because they did that, the violence upon them
Yeah.
had increased. Now, when that regulation was not there, they could call law enforcement if something was off, yeah, if they were being stalked.
Yeah.
And side, another odd thing I found out that often they have also been one of the major
Okay.
victims of murder. And the reason being is nobody gives a shit if they die.
That's very disheartening.
Nobody cares. And there are just estimates of how many must have been killed on a daily basis. Because, first of all, since I said some of them are immigrants and
Well,
obviously there is no paperwork on them.
well,
So
to
they are
back you up,
not
I would
even on
say
the
two-thirds
statistic.
of the prostitutes are foreign and most often illegal. And nobody is like, they're not registered. It's like nobody gives a shit about them. This is, yeah, man. So most of them are, like you very well said, are immigrants from different lands and they are
Yeah,
exploited in this way. And that is
yeah,
one big problem that we
yeah,
are having right now. And also decriminalization hasn't done very good, like you said. It's like even in places like New Zealand and Netherlands, they've observed this trend that they have decriminalized prostitution, but it doesn't, yeah, legalized prostitution, and it hasn't helped with the violence part. It has little impact on that.
it hasn't. So it has to be both. And there has to be legislation on where it makes it safer for them to continue with the trade. Okay. That will, because see, in the end, you want a safer environment, work environment. Whatever profession you do, you want a safer work environment. When we work at offices, right, or if you're just sitting in a classroom, our fears could be just homework. Their fear is literally being killed and tossed on the side of the street.
Dodo. One way to put it is
Hmm.
that it's like the how you would assess criminalizing it or decriminalizing it, like we talked about. Even if it's not making a
Hmm.
lot of difference in the first place, there will always be. It's like whatever you do, whatever if you legalize it and decriminalize it in the first place, there will always be violence and there will
Hmm.
always be things going on,
Yeah, yeah.
things there'll
Hmm.
be problems in the system. It wouldn't go away. You cannot really advocate to the fact that
Hmm.
maybe there'll be no, or do you say, violence against women going on, especially in this line of work. But again, the way you put it is that
Hmm.
what is better in the first place? What is better to not legalize it or and totally criminalize it, so that in both things one is common. Prostitution is not going away. That is something you could say.
Hmm.
Whether it's legalized or not legalized,
Hmm.
like drugs, this is very simple. You legalize it or you don't legalize it. I'm not saying you should legalize drugs in the first place. I'm just using it as
Hmm.
an example to say that it's
Hmm.
not going away. Prostitution is not going away. It's very simple.
Hmm.
It's like supply versus demand. There will always be a demand. Here, the
Hmm.
demand is the lust of people, which is a human characteristic. It's not going away. So the better question to ask is that to establish standards, like we talked about, to establish standards, and maybe it's announced better to legalize it and make sure that the people who are in the line of work are doing better than criminalizing it. That's one way to look at it. I think, Dodo. It's like what's better.
No, I don't think criminalizing at all is the
Exactly.
solution.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. The what is better if you see is decriminalizing and legalizing it. This is one train of thought.
Hmm.
It's like if you compare both,
Okay.
criminalizing is not helping. It's
Yeah.
never going to help. It's never
No,
going to
no.
help. If people say that decriminalizing it and legalizing it would only increase the demand and maybe more and more women would go into that, that is something I wouldn't say. Maybe that is something.
No.
I think it's a nice train of thought in the first place.
It's at the beginning. The beginning
Ha
maybe.
ha ha.
Right. It'll be in
Exactly.
the beginning. That's it. If suddenly cocaine was
Yeah.
made legal, maybe 1 year, 2 years, just buying cocaine like fools. After
Exactly.
that, what?
There'll always
Right.
be stability in that, of course. So this,
Yeah. In those 2 years, those who became addicts have become addicts. But after that, it's only just these addicts that are buying. What about the rest? There are no new users. So we don't know how each market functions. This is just another market like like others. It'll be something new. It'll react in a different way. So just by saying legalizing will encourage more to engage with purchase their services is not something I'll agree on, because we cannot even determine how that market will function. But on the broader scheme of things and on a larger scheme of things, you have to understand that when you criminalize something, there is an aura of denial. I mean, same thing we have of slavery. It is illegal to sell a human being, but we have trafficking to this day. It is illegal to sell drugs. Drugs are sold. They're sold everywhere. To a point that they used it as a distraction on
Okay,
TV
let's
channels.
not
Is
delve
there?
into that, Dodo. Okay, so
Hmm.
moving on to this one detail I would like to add, that I don't know why it is always difficult, because talking about prostitution or about talking about sex work is difficult
Hmm.
conversation to have, and which I think is also a part of the problem that we are facing. Like no one really
Hmm.
wants to talk about prostitution, and also not a lot of
Hmm.
people really want to show that. Like the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about Brenda's Got a Baby. Tupac faced a lot of things when that was coming out because it was the truth that was coming out. And then again, there is this
Hmm.
poem by Walt Whitman. It's called To a Common
Okay.
Prostitute. And when he was going to publish
Yeah.
it, his publisher
Hmm.
specifically told him to remove that one piece out of the whole collection. So it has always been difficult to have these kind of conversation, and I think that is
Yeah.
one of the things that needs to be revised, so that people need to talk about it more, so that's how we find solutions to it. That's how we find ways to alleviate these kind of menaces of trafficking and other
Hmm.
deeds that are going on.
No, at the same time, I mean, see, it's just a very hard life. If they are harmed in
Hmm.
any way, nobody is going
Nobody's got
to.
their back in the first place.
Yeah, nobody's got their back. Can't go to the cops. They can't even seek a lawyer because they don't make millions, right?
Exactly, and this is where legalizing it and decriminalizing it really helps. At least they have a backup. At least they have a place to go. At least they have the sense of safety in the first place.
Yeah, Sai,
Yeah.
as we are talking about this and it has become a bit serious, let's make it a little lighthearted for a minute. I want you to share one awkward conversation you had with someone when you were talking about.
Well, it's a little hard to talk about. Like I always said, not a lot of people really want to talk about prostitution in the first place, and
Hmm.
that's one of the reasons why we are talking about it here,
Hmm.
right, in the first place. So I would like you to, it's like, go ahead and tell me one while I think about it, because I never really have had this type of conversations with a lot of people.
I remember talking to this random douche.
Okay.
Yeah. This idiot was telling that it's okay to rape a prostitute because they are in that profession and school. Like,
No,
it's like
that's
how,
really terrible, man. That
yeah,
really
really messed up. Really messed up.
sickens
Yeah.
my spirit, and it really does,
Yeah.
man.
So I wouldn't even call it awkward. It's disgusting. I
Exactly,
didn't have any awkward conversation. I had a disgusting conversation.
exactly. I don't think you should ever like contact that person again or ever talk to him,
I
because that shows how he is wired in the first place.
true, but I instead decided to explain him why it's wrong.
Okay.
And the main reason I think he said it was because he didn't even understand what the hell rape means.
Mm-hmm.
The poor fellow didn't even understand what the hell consent means. And they also don't understand because that guy happened to be studying law. So I had to explain in his language that
Mm-hmm.
he's not only committing one crime, but he's actually committing two crimes. One, he's violating someone's sexual independence, he's raping someone, and at the same time, he's also stealing. I had to explain that just to persuade him that it's wrong, that his idea is wrong.
That's a really matured way that you approach the
Yeah.
problem, but at the same time, it's very sickening, man. Hope he really understood and
Oh
changed
yeah,
his
yeah, it
perspective.
is very sad. I had to teach the poor fellow, and I pity these people first of all because they don't understand basic
I
things.
think it's safe to say that he's not the only one out there, because there are a lot of people who think that way.
What I appreciate about that douchebag is he still was open enough to understand, and now he's okay. Now since he understands, he doesn't say insensitive things like these because now he's understood what rape is, what consent is, the real difficulties that they go through. It's not an easy life. They're not nymphomaniacs. And when you trade with a prostitute, right? You make a deal with her that I need you for a night and you'll do whatever it is and I'll pay you, right? So now when I pay her, I get her consent. I'm buying her consent. in this case. So I'd explain that to him in grave details. And what I'll appreciate about him, that even though as sickening as his initial thought was, he was still open to understand my perspective and even eventually change his mind. So I'll appreciate that. So I guess, Sai,
Yeah,
what we also should do, I mean, if you've come across such people,
yeah,
we have to explain them what this is.
exactly. We need to let the conversation happen in the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah.
It's not a topic that people frequently talk about. And there is this another
No,
idea.
because Sai, if we just say he's sick and walk away without at least even trying to explain him what's wrong with his train of thought, then we are behaving.
I agree that I stand
Yeah,
corrected in this point.
yeah, yeah.
It is sickening,
Hmm,
but it is our responsibility, like you
hmm,
said, it is our
hmm,
responsibility to at least one person at a time to
yeah,
let them understand what
hmm,
it really means in the first place, to correct people
hmm,
in the first place. There
yeah,
is this other idea that people usually frequent and people really misunderstand. That's what I believe. They usually connect
hmm,
misogyny with prostitution. So that is something I would like
yeah,
to correct, and I would like to say that misogyny and prostitution are not the same things. It's like prostitution doesn't motivate misogyny, or misogyny is not
no,
doesn't drive the line of work, because it's only misogynistic. Let me be very clear here. It is only
to an
misogynistic
extent,
when
yeah,
like you like what your friend said or your acquaintance
yeah,
said in the first place, when you're
yeah,
raping or when you do not have like a specific consent to commit some kind of activities, or you're overstepping
yeah,
a
yeah,
sex work or doing
yeah,
violence in the first place, then that is misogynistic. But the line
hmm,
of work itself is not misogynistic. And again, this idea really frequents
yeah,
this idea is really frequented out there. It's
yeah,
widely, a lot of people accept this idea. I don't know why, because one thing we could always agree is that there are more female prostitutes out there than men. That is something we could always agree on, but that is not
hmm,
that shouldn't be the
hmm,
case to really come up with conclusions that misogyny drives prostitution, or misogyny and prostitution are synonymous.
hmm. I mean, that's just one tiny facet of it, but there are many other things that they're happily ignoring. Aside, there was another weird part of the conversation. He asked me this. I mean, see, when you're curious about something, you ask things like a child does,
Of
right?
course you do.
About anything that we don't know about. Since he was very drawn into the conversation, that same douchebag, he asked me to picture a scenario that I went and gave some money to this woman, to the prostitute, and she takes it and run away. Now, according to him, I should go and take the service and run away. But I was like, why? I'll just take the money back,
Of course,
right?
man. Of course.
I told him, just take the money back if you're in that situation, and just tell I don't need your services anymore. Go away, you're a douchebag. I had to explain, you don't have to do anything like that. Then I had to explain why. I mean, because at the time, at that point of the conversation, it wasn't clear to him why rape is done in the first place. I mean, we both understand, right? There's a power
Of
dynamic
course, of
when
course.
rape happens.
Like there
Yeah,
are a shit ton of people like him in the world. That is the
yeah,
problem. And
yeah,
like very well you said, whenever we come across,
yeah.
and all of you guys listening to it, if you guys
Hmm,
have the same kind of idea out there that you can do anything
hmm,
to a person who's a sex worker or a prostitute, you think that is
yeah.
correct or it is okay in the first place,
Yeah.
then you're gravely mistaken.
Absolutely. You're still a moron, first of all, and a fucking rapist, that's for sure. But these thoughts come for this same problem again, having no conversation and conservatism. Because people from a conservative society, they tend to be very hush hush about topics like these.
Exactly.
Anything that has to do with sex, they have to just shut up, not talk about it.
I
You
think
know.
it's more
Hmm.
like a big chain or a trend. It's like that follows
Hmm.
generations of things. It's like basically
Yeah.
you don't talk about this if you're awkward to talk about this with much more
Hmm.
younger generation.
Yeah.
Let's just say like you and I are like 21, 22, and we are shy to talk about this with
Hmm.
appropriate ages like who are much smaller than us. Let's just say 17
Hmm.
or 18-year olds. If we don't
Hmm.
talk about this to them, so the same trend continues.
Yeah.
As we
Yeah.
move on, they also think it's something wrong to talk about it,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that is what creates the conservative society in the first place.
Yeah. Because there is also at the same time there's some sort of repression. I saw another documentary. There was this criminal, high profile
Hmm.
criminal, and he was talking about the conservative background he was in. And he would say that when he had an erection when he was a child, 12 or 13 maybe, he felt ashamed of himself. And the thing is, we need someone to talk to about this, because at some point of our life we're going to encounter these situations. At some point we will have sex, so we need to talk to someone about various facets of it, and otherwise we will not understand. At the same time, the more we talk about this, maybe then they will stop seeing the word prostitute in a derogatory term, because they often associate prostitution with sex, and sex is something they think it is they should be ashamed about. That has got to go. So maybe when there are conversations about sex itself, maybe prostitutes will not be seen in a derogatory way. They'll not be seen as just people defenestrating their
And,
dignities.
and another way to explain it is also a lot of people, I think, truly believe that
Yeah,
they put sex in a pedestal in the first place.
yeah.
They really put sex in a pedestal and they are really conservative about it. And that's why, like you
Hmm.
said, the conversations don't happen. And people, they really don't understand what it is in the first place. It's just a
Hmm.
natural
Hmm.
mechanism that is there in all the different species, not only human beings, different species of animals, birds, and every other organism out there.
Yeah.
So when you put it in a pedestal, what really happens is stop understanding stuff and you become more dogmatic about it. You
Hmm.
start
Okay.
you you become dogmatic about it. You stop thinking in the first place. You idealize it more, you romanticize
Hmm.
it more,
Hmm.
which again stops you from understanding it.
There was one solution they said about eradicating this problem. Now, it was just a hypothesis, and someone said that if there was literally no borders all across the board, they could just move from one place to another. And probably, since the major reason for number of prostitutes across the world were immigrants, they left places and they came here. So maybe if there was no border in the first place, all they would have to do is, maybe then those problems wouldn't have happened. Because now see, in a world with borders, not only she had to worry about getting there in the person,
Mhm.
not only had to worry about getting there in the first place, but they had to dodge border patrols and all sorts of government authorities. If it's India, then whatever you think,
The
right?
I really think, like I already mentioned, the only way to
Hmm.
eradicate prostitution as a whole is like to not have the concept of prostitution in the first place is to eradicate the demand, and that is never going to happen. I'm telling you.
No,
You
no,
cannot eradicate the demand, or you cannot eradicate the natural emotion of lust that
no,
everybody
no.
has. It's undeniable.
Yeah, yeah, you can't. And it's like not everybody, and people those who are normally consumers of prostitution are very sad people,
Hmm.
right? They have no one to talk to typically. They don't have a shoulder to cry on, a person to hug, maybe, or maybe just single horny people. Either way, there's something missing in their void, right? It's something that they don't have, which is why they're seeking such company, and that's okay. The point is to feel better, and whatever it is that you do to make yourself feel better, it is fine.
And
Nothing wrong in that.
there's also this point that goes,
Yeah.
it's like we said, the sole idea of, like, a lot of people put sex on a pedestal, like we were talking about, because
Yeah.
lust is undeniable and a lot of people do not accept it, and that itself is
No.
conservative, because lust is
Yeah.
undeniable. That is a
Yeah.
fact,
And
and the only way.
Sai, the college we were in, they were forced to not even feel lust. Obviously, that's problematic.
Exactly,
The
it's
fact
all
that
about
you
acceptance.
see, yeah, yeah, you see sex as a derogatory thing. What brought you here in the first place? Yeah, a couple had to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Had to have sex. I mean, there's no other way. Well, okay, maybe you were adopted. Maybe your parents did, someone else did. But either way, they see it as a very derogatory thing, and that's what upsets me. And I guess if we stop seeing sex as a derogatory thing, we will not see the prostitutes as derogatory people. And I guess we have to attack that mindset more than the profession itself. Don't you agree?
Yes, man, of course, of course. It's the mindset that sets the trend straight. It's like it's how we
Yeah.
think and how what we accept,
Hmm.
it's like what's really going on in our heads and what we talk about in the first place that makes it all happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
on this note, it's like
Yeah.
hope we believe we added value to your lives in some way or the other, and hope
Hmm.
you try to understand the whole point of this discussion. It's like keep the conversation happening. Talk about it.
Yeah,
If you have ideas of lust, it's nothing wrong to talk about sex workers, prostitution, and the
yeah,
conversation needs to happen. Of
yeah.
course, there might be debates. There might it's like we might not agree with each other in the first place,
Mm,
but
mm.
there's always we could always find solutions and we could always find new ideas even amidst disagreements. Dodo would of course agree.
Yeah, and we must acknowledge their existence.
Exactly.
They are people after all, just trying to get by like we do, and that's it. That's all. We have to just acknowledge their existence, give them that guarantee that they will be treated as dignified people. I think that's what's more. That's what's important. Of course, sex being taboo is one of the major reasons we think. Of course, we are not philosophers and academics, but it is what it is.
Because it's
And
it's
yeah,
one train of thought, I
yeah.
guess. We have put it out there for you
Yeah,
guys to think
yeah,
about
yeah,
and talk about too.
yeah.
So in this light, hope we see a tomorrow where people are not judged by their profession as a whole,
Yes, yes, and
by
yes,
themselves,
the fact that it
by their
is
characteristics and their behavior.
yeah, and the fact that they are is very upsetting. We have to just acknowledge their existence first, and maybe we can think of other things in the future. But first, we have to acknowledge that they exist and they are the very fabric. They are a part of our society. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.